This week we're talking about how to create effective healthcare campaigns. Make sure as you're watching this video that you've clicked on a link provided with the video so you can enter your answers into the survey that goes along with it, so I can see how you're interacting with the content for this week and see if we need to clarify anything. So as we're putting together a healthcare campaign, what we're ultimately trying to do is systematically put together some kind of a message to increase awareness and to enact behavioral changes for a specific target population. So as we are thinking about the different types of healthcare campaigns, we can really identify two main types of health campaigns. The first being the type of campaign that seeks to raise awareness in an effort to change the behaviors of individuals. So think lifestyle choices, things like decreasing smoking or alcohol consumption, bettering our diet, increasing our exercise, that type of thing. The other type that we typically will see when we're looking at healthcare campaigns is public policy change. Now these are different types of healthcare campaigns that seek to reduce the inequalities in marginalized groups by changing societal conditions or situations. So let's go watch an example of how this might look in action.
What were you modeling for?
Well, you know those posters for the city free clinic?
Oh, wow. So you're going to be one of those healthy guys?
Huh?
Oh, you know, the asthma guy's really cute.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know which one you're going to be?
No. But I hear Lyme disease is open, so, you know.
Good luck, man. I hope you get it.
Oh, hi. We used to work together.
We did?
Yeah, at Macy's. You're the Obsession girl, right?
Yes.
I was the Aramis guy. Aramis.
Yeah, right.
I gotta tell you, you're the best in the business.
Get out.
I'm serious, you're amazing. You know when to spritz, you know when to lay back.
Really? You don't know what that means to me.
You smell great tonight. What are you wearing?
Nothing.
Listen, you want to go get a drink or something?
Yeah.
Oh, what's wrong?
I just remembered I have to do something.
Oh, what?
Leave.
Oh, wait. So I guess you all saw it.
What? Saw what?
No, we're just laughing. You know how laughter can be infectious.
So that would be an example of a type of healthcare campaign seeking to raise awareness and change behavioral styles. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to get ready to pause your video to answer question 1. So question 1 is going to ask you to think about a healthcare campaign that influenced you. I want you to go and find a link to some part of that campaign, whether it's a video or a poster or something along those lines. Copy and paste a link to that campaign into the box for question 1, and then provide a short description of the campaign and the things that made it so memorable for you. So we've talked a little bit about the basics of healthcare campaigns. Let's dig into the theoretical underpinnings that underlie the reasons why we make choices in different campaigns. And let's start with Bandura's social cognitive theory. In social cognitive theory, the argument is that health behaviors are the product of individual thought processes and the influences of our social networks. Now, individual thought processes are things like expectations, self-efficacy, attitudes, beliefs, values. all of these different things that impact the types of decisions we make. Now, obviously, the decisions we make are influenced by our environmental events and the things that happen around us. We are rewarded or punished for fitting in or for not fitting in. So these are the two things that are going to be influencing the behaviors we make related to our health. Now, as we're thinking about the behaviors that we're making, we talked about self-efficacy being one of the things impacting the decisions we're making. And self-efficacy is the belief we have in our ability to exert personal control over situations. Sometimes this is broad, like I can avoid getting sick most of the time, and sometimes it's specific, like I can remember to get a mammogram. Our belief is that actions will lead to outcomes, but if we doubt our ability to do a specific action, we're going to doubt our ability to reach that specific outcome. We are also going to be looking at things like weighing the benefits versus the change. Is the change worth the benefit for us? Now, in the long term, we know that eating right and exercising is better for our health. But in the short term, it's a lot more fun to sit on the couch and binge watch Friends for 17 hours. So we need to be weighing those types of benefits out. And as we're creating different healthcare campaigns, we need to be thinking about the ways that the self-efficacy, the action versus outcome, the benefits versus change, how our individual thought process and all that are influenced by and interacting with our social networks to create the health behaviors we're going to choose. So let's look back at that example that we looked at with the Friends video. So what we looked at in terms of the action is that the outcome is if we don't ask about if our sexual partner has VD, we're going to get VD because they aren't necessarily going to tell us. In this advertisement, in this campaign, they also were trying to hit on the idea that we have the ability to perform a specific action. We can ask a question. That's a simple enough task to do, and in doing so, we can then prevent ourselves from getting VD. Another area of theory that impacts the way we create healthcare campaigns and the efficacy of healthcare campaigns is the theory of reasoned action. And in this theory, the argument is that intention predicts behavioral changes. Now, there's no guarantee that intention is going to yield a specific behavior, but the intention a person has, or a person's attitude towards the behavior and the appraisal of relevant social norms, which would be like, would others approve or disapprove of the action that's being talked about? That's all going to influence the person's intent to change their behavior. So we need to take into account things like the internal things an individual has, like resources, skills, self-efficacy, things like that, as well as the external resources someone has, like the opportunity to change their behavior, the ability to engage in a proposed behavior. If a person wants to begin exercising more, but they can't because they don't have a gym membership, or they don't have time, or they're working 3 jobs, whatever it might be, those are all different things that are impacting an individual's ability to engage in that specific behavior. So if we're going back to our example, one of the things this healthcare campaign team was thinking about is that it's assuming the target audience is having sex and that they have the opportunity to ask their partner if they have VD. What their intent is to do is to try to build the intent to ask the question. The next theoretical underpinnings we want to dig into is the health belief model by Becker. Now, in this model, what we're looking at is the threat of an illness versus the behavioral response to that type of threat. So we're looking at our susceptibility to that threat and gauging the severity of the threat if it were to affect us. Now, part of the health belief model is that the message needs to include cues to action. And cues to action are prompts to individuals to try and have them pay attention to content and messages. Sometimes these prompts would be internal, like having a cue that when we feel bloated we should exercise. Sometimes they're external, like pressure from peers or celebrities to try and behave in a certain way. So in our example, going back to the VD example, the threat is that not saying that an individual has VD doesn't mean that that individual doesn't have VD. It means that even if the person doesn't tell you, the threat is there that the individual, that you could get VD. And the cues to act is that before you have sex, you should find out if your partner has VD. So let's talk the extended parallel process model. In the extended parallel process model by Whitty, the idea is that fear appeals as a motivation for health behaviors. Now this model suggests that the emotional response of an individual will impact their behaviors. Now obviously this is impacted by the individual's self-efficacy, their appraisal of resources, their environment. These are all things that are important to be thinking about and how we can cope with a threatening situation. But ultimately, this model depends on fear as a motivation. So we need to watch out that we don't overuse it, similar to the idea that we don't overuse pathos in a persuasive speaking setting. All right, so I'd like to have you get ready to pause your video to answer question 2. So for question 2, what I'd like you to think about is for that healthcare campaign you chose in question 1, I want you to identify how aspects of self-efficacy, influence from others, how actions lead to outcomes, cues to action, and how appeals to fear were used in the campaign that you chose. Go ahead and pause your video and type your answer to that question. So we started to think about the theoretical underpinnings of why we make certain choices in our healthcare campaigns. Let's talk about the multi-stage model of change. So we can think about where in the process of changing from inaction to action on a specific behavior our audience members might be. So Lipke and Zeigelman suggested that there is a multiple stage set of change, a multi-stage model of how change is enacted in specific individuals based or for specific behaviors. The first step is the pre-contemplation stage. This is where an individual is unaware of a health issue or they don't think about making behavior changes. This is a non-action based step. The next step would be a contemplation step. This is when an individual is aware of an issue, they're weighing the pros and cons of adopting a behavioral change, but they have not yet made any choices about it. After we've completed the non-intentional stages, we then move into the intentional stages. It's still not an active choice that's being made, but there is intent that's being created. The first stage of this is the disposition stage, and this is where we implement certain goals for behavioral changes. Then we move on to pre-action, so we detail our plan for action. We're not yet acting, we're just thinking about what we want to be doing. When we actively move into the action stage, we then start working into the implementation stage. And as we're working into the implementation stage, what we try to do is we actually start implementing the pre-action stage that we began. When it becomes that we move into the habituation stage, that's the degree to which we actually stick to the change we've made. And in our fluctuations and resumption stages, what we're doing then is we're fluctuating back and forth to the degree that we have continued on with the behavior, and either we stop the behavior or we resume the behavior at the level we want to. So it's a somewhat cyclical thing. It does not assume that once you start a behavior, you're going to complete it forever. Ultimately, what we want to be doing is we want to determine where our audience is on this spectrum of their multi-stage model. So we go back to our example then. In this example, the creators of this campaign are assuming that the audience is in the pre-action stage. They're disposed to not wanting to have STIs, but they don't necessarily know how to avoid getting an STI. This offers a specific plan of action for them to follow. So the assumption is that they're in that pre-action stage. All right, so get ready to pause your video so you can answer question 3. For question 3, what I'd like you to think about is in that healthcare campaign that you've been looking at throughout these questions, I want you to identify where you believe campaign creators felt their audience members were based on the content in the campaign. Where do you think they were in the decision-making process? And describe to me why you believe this is the case.